Hey y'all, it's Laura, and I'm back with another Cherry on Top layout, this one using the absolutely gorgeous Pinkfresh Studio Keeping It Real collection, which is gorgeous and has purple in it. When I saw how much purple was in this collection, I had to have it. It is so pretty. I have these two photos of my daughter up in a tree, where she practically lives when she's in our backyard. She's a big fan of the tree. And so my husband had taken one photo, the larger photo, and I decided to also take a smaller photo. So what I did there is just copied the photo, cropped it, zoomed in, and printed it smaller. So it's kind of like a magnified look at the photo. Shows her a little bit more close up because I wanted you to see that she is in the tree. I mean, well up into the tree actually. But I also wanted to zoom in on her in specific. And so I don't know if y'all remember science textbooks where they would have those images that were like magnified and they'd pop them up in one section where it was bigger than the original image. And that's just what was in my head when I was doing that. So I do have my punch from We Are Memory Keepers. I never remember what these things are called, but they're intended to go around a page protector or tag hole. And I don't, are they just I don't remember. There's something protector, I'm not sure. But I used it to cut a bunch of open insided circles, little donuts, if you will. And so I've decided to create a little border along the right side of this page with my little donuts in a number of colors. All of the colors that were on that striped 6x6 paper. This is a quick 6x6 tricks video, so we're only going to be using 6x6 paper today, and I have fussy cut the other paper that I pulled into those circles and tiny, tiny little florals, and I think there's some asterisks in there as well. And so I went in with the donuts first, and then I'm coming in with the larger circles, fitting those into place, going off the edge with the ones that were on the edge of the original paper. Went ahead and cut those half pieces out, put them on the edge of this paper. And going off of the edge is a neat little trick of the eye to make your layout look a little bit more dynamic. It's a little bit more interesting when shapes continue off the edge. I don't know if you've noticed that in most patterned paper, but the designers use that trick as well. So I'd go ahead and cut those pieces out, put them on the edge of the paper, totally good to go. This is a bit of a time lapse because this part of the layout did take a great deal of time. I am using both glue from my tonic glue pen and glue dots to add these tiny pieces all around as quickly as possible so that didn't take an hour for just this part. And it went fairly quickly once I got into a groove of where things should go and just started kind of sticking them where they would fit and trying not to put too many of the same color in one section. And that's really all I was worried about when getting this down. Now that I'm down to the tiniest little pieces, I'm just using my little glue pen to glue those down in any open spaces. Now I'm not worried about filling the entirety of that white space on the border because I'm going to do scattering and splattering at the end. So don't worry, we're going to fill in any gaps later on. Now I'm just trimming off the edges here. Now you saw at the beginning I did trim this 9x12 paper down a little bit. That's because we're going to add a border. That's right, we're adding a paper border using 6x6 papers. Those of you that have been with me for a while know exactly how I'm going to do that. But first, let's get our photos on the layout. I decided to grab a couple of papers and pull them out to create a little boundary between my circular explosion and my photos. I am a linear scrapper. I do like to have a little boundary or border that kind of functions as a shelf or a place for my photos to land. And in this case, that shelf's going to be to the side instead of underneath because I'm already working with a vertical design, having my little bubbles and donuts flying up and down the right side of the page. Now layering these two strips together, and to get that longer strip, I have cut two of that purple floral and then taped them together to make it longer. And then I'm going to tape my smaller photo down here in the bottom right with a slight offset to the larger photo, taking that all the way to the edge of the page because remember I'm adding a border on that side. So it won't look like it's right at the edge of the page when we're finished. pulling out the ephemera from Keeping It Real, as well as the puffy stickers and the floral ephemera. And I'm just going to pick through here and see what I can find. Not entirely sure what I'm looking for, but I knew I wanted a spot for my journaling, so this label works perfectly and fills in that little gap that I have created underneath of my larger photo. That is sometimes called trapped space because it is an open area where the other sides are covered. So it's kind of closed in and it's just an empty hole on the layout. And I do try to avoid leaving trapped space. So as you can see, there's another trapped space up in the top left at the moment above the smaller photo. And we're going to fill that in as well. And I purposely did that because I wanted to show you how to fill in that trapped space. It doesn't have to be with anything monumental. Even just adding something small up in that area that kind of lends the eye to, okay, there's something in that space is often enough. There's going to be pretty minor embellishing on this one because I have such a busy background going on the right. I don't want to compete with that. I want to bring your attention to the photos. So what I'm going to do here is bring in a large purple floral. Okay, so we've got a little bit of purple in spots on the right side, but I would not say it's the dominant color. However, my daughter's dress has a lot of purple in it. And so by bringing in this big shot of purple, it draws your eye to the photos. The other little trick I've used here is because my photos are so dark, I am using lots of light and bright colors to scrap it with. The purpose there is to make the photos stand out. If I only used colors directly from the photo, there'd be a whole lot of brown going on. And it would be very easy for my photos then to sink back into that design and kind of lose their focal image status. Instead, I'm using my embellishing to draw all of your attention into the photos, and then you can appreciate the beautiful colors to the right. But that big floral cluster with that bold purple flower really helps to draw your eye directly in to the photos. So now that that cluster is complete, I'm going to bring in a title. And I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to call this, but I wanted to keep it pretty simple. This is a pretty common activity for my daughter. She spends a lot of time in trees. And so I wanted to put something that again pulled in more of that purple, drawing the eye over to the photos, but also wasn't so complicated that it drew attention away from them. Because they're very simple photos. There's nothing flashy or bright to catch your attention in those photos. And so by keeping that embellishing fairly simple, it helps the photos to stand out. So I decided on Keep It Real. And, you know, name of the collection works perfectly. And initially I was going to put it down here at the bottom, but let me tell you why this doesn't work. One, the T is overlapping my journaling spot. And so I'm losing space for journaling. And that's the only spot I've left myself with my title at the bottom. Two, the letters were not puzzling together very nicely because the T and the K are so tall. And it was making it kind of awkward down at the bottom. By moving it up to the top left and overlapping the photo, I've filled in that vacant space, so it is no longer an awkward empty hole, and it has a purpose. Finishing off with my scattering and splattering using Nuvo Drops and Heidi Swap Color Shine, this layout is just about done. One thing missing though, my border! Of course, I would generally recommend you add your border before you're scattering and splattering. I forgot. So you're going to see how I modify this plan and very carefully add a border post splattering. So I'm going to take this 6x6 paper and cut it up into 8 strips and going to paper piece all the way around the border. And because I've already done my splattering, we're going to reverse the adherent method. So normally I would add tape around the perimeter of the back of the layout and then just paper piece each of the strips to the back to create a border. That's obviously not going to work if I can't turn the layout upside down. So instead, I am adding the tape to the strips and then paper piecing it onto the back. It's a little bit more fiddly and generally annoying, but it does work, and it did turn out pretty cute. But this is a great way to use as much as possible out of your 6x6 paper pads, and I love working with this size. I think it's extremely convenient. I think it challenges you creatively and makes you look at your paper pads a little bit differently, look at the patterns a little bit differently. And I definitely think I'm going to be cutting up this 12x12 version of this circle paper and doing a 12x12 version of this background, because I really love how this came out. It was just an explosion of fun, and that sort of design really appeals to me. Now overall, I really enjoy making my own backgrounds, but I'm curious if that is something that you do routinely yourself, or do you rely on pattern paper to create your ready-made backgrounds? I often use punches and or fussy cutting to create patterns from the paper that are a little bit different than what originally came on the paper, just for a way to mix it up a little bit. So let me know that in the comments below. We're wrapping up this layout with the last bit of border. Be sure to check out the still photos and close-ups at the end. Until next time, bye guys!